ओके सो कल हमने जो भी HTML का था वो पूरा हमने फिनिश कर दिया था. सो आज हम लोग वी गोना स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट द CSS का पार्ट. So if you remember we spoke about HTML and जब भी हम लोग इस स्टाइलिंग के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, हाउ टू ऐड कलर्स, या फिर जब भी हम लोग एक अनऑर्डर्ड लिस्ट या ऑर्डर्ड लिस्ट बनाते हैं तो वी सी द डिफॉल्ट स्टाइलिंग वहां पर, like if you create an unordered list like shopping list, and then by default those buttons, we see those the circles, right? So all of those things they're coming by default by HTML. So agar humko like HTML website pe if we have to change the styling of anything, we have to always use the CSS ka thing here. Okay, so just like HTML, if we want to work with CSS, we need two main things. First thing is the browser, and second thing is the code editor, which in our case we'll use the VS Code. Okay, so HTML में भी हमको ये सिर्फ ये दोनों we need only these both things, and we need the same two things for CSS as well. Okay, now let's start with the VS Code. So I'll create a new folder called CSS, and I'll open VS Code, and let's open up the CSS in the VS Code. Okay, so here we will create a new HTML file pehle. So right click and click on new file and index.html. Let me increase the font size. Okay, now here मैंने कल बताया था कि how to create a blank HTML template, and for that you have to just add the exclamation mark and hit tab. Once you do that, HTML template will be generated automatically by VS Code. Okay, यहाँ पर we can start adding the what elements we want. This is a heading. Now before getting into how to style the elements, let's start talking about the CSS का in more detail. So इसका full form है cascading style sheets. बाद में हम लोग देखते हैं what does the cascading mean. Okay, but style का मतलब है whenever you want to add some styling to the element, okay, that is a style part of it. And sheets का मतलब है you can create multiple files, and each of the files can have multiple style properties inside them. Okay, now this is a style sheet language, not a programming language. Okay, like just like how HTML was just a markup language and not a programming language, this is also just a style sheet language but not a programming language. Okay, next thing is in CSS you actually like control the layout of web page, you control the spacing between elements, you control what color the text will be in, and many of those things. Like if you open again, let's say apple.com, यहाँ पर all the styling you see, like for example we are saying कि iPhone 13 Pro जो है, the text जो है, it should be in the middle of the entire website. See, even if I decrease the length or width of my browser, this text is always in the center of my website. It never goes to left or right. It's always in the center. Okay, and when you reduce the width after a certain point, you observe that the size of the image has also reduced. Like look at this and now look at this. Okay, so all of these things are controlled by CSS. And the color of the text here, the links ka, and images dena, and all of this is controlled by CSS. लेकिन जो भी content है website पे, that is still controlled by HTML. Like आप लोग अगर if you want to type out this introducing a largest display, all of this will be inside the HTML. लेकिन आप जो भी like styling देंगे वो सब कुछ it will be there in the CSS का part. Okay. Now last thing I want to tell is the way we work with CSS is like हम लोग will be creating multiple elements within our HTML, right? We will be creating H1, we create a form, we create list, we create table, we create paragraph, divs and spans, all of those things. We select the HTML elements, like जो भी element हमको style करना है, we select that element and then we apply the style. Like let's say कि I am a paragraph. Okay, so we have two elements right now. The way CSS works is you select any element and then you apply the styles on top of that element. That's how it works. That's what CSS basically is. Okay, now there are the first question will be how to add CSS to your how to add CSS to HTML file. There are three different ways. Okay, and the first way is by inline style. Second way is internal style sheet, and third way is external style sheet. Okay, we have three different ways in which you can add a CSS ka file or CSS ka rules to your website. First way is inline, second is internal style sheet, third is external style sheet. Okay, we have three different ways which we can add, but ultimately we'll be using only one of them most of the times. And we'll talk about the reasoning also behind that. Okay, so we'll go through all these three things now. First we'll cover the inline styles, Abhi. How to apply inline styles. Now before that, let's run this again. If you remember, yesterday I had spoken about where's extension? We had spoken about this live server extension. I hope you guys have installed it. Install karne ke baad, just come here. You will either see this option called go live here, which you can click on this, or go to view, go to command palette, search for live server and click on this. Mahesh, you're not on mute. Is that intentional or no? Okay. When you click on this thing will open right here. Okay, let me put them side by side. Okay. So we are here right now. Okay, we already have this here. So first let's start talking about the inline styles, like how to add inline styles. Now, so every HTML element, it has an attribute called the style attribute. Okay, the style attribute, basically you can add all the different styles inside of this. Okay, let's add a very simple style. I just want to change the color of this H1 to orange. We just add color and then we add orange, and then we also need to add a semicolon here. When you hit save, you'll see the color change to orange. Okay, this is how you create what is called an inline style. Now whatever you're seeing inside the codes here, this is called a CSS declaration. Okay, it's basically a combination of a property and a value. Like this is a property and this is a value. Let's talk about this in detail now. So I'll just open this up here. Okay, so this is called a CSS declaration. Okay, now here what we have here is we have a property and we have a value, and every CSS rule will have these two things only. Okay, this is called a property and this is called a value. Now remember, these both terms are very important because जब हम लोग जावास्क्रिप्ट और रिएक्ट पढ़ना शुरू करेंगे, you'll come across these terms all the time. Okay, this is called a property and this is called a value, and this entire thing is called a CSS declaration. Okay, now it's not a good idea to actually add the inline styles like this. Okay, the reason being, I'll tell you. Let's say I have 10 different h1 elements like this. Okay, and this is different, this is like another heading, and so on and so forth. Now if I actually wanted to like add the style, the same style to every different element, let's say we have a markup like this. Now if I want to add the style of orange to all the h1 elements, what should I do? I have to basically like go and copy this thing and paste it in every single element, and only then it will work. Okay, which means, you know, we are doing a lot of duplicacy here, right? Okay, now tomorrow if your manager will come and ask you to change the color from orange to red, you have to again come back and change it every single place, like red, then red, 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 and red. Okay, basically every single time you have a change, you have to come and make the change at every single element, and we are duplicating the code a lot, which we do not do in programming. See, when it comes to programming now, you have to be very creative and logical about things. We should not duplicate our code or duplicate our efforts much. जितना हो सके उतना हमको कोशिश करना है कि हम लोग डुप्लीकेट कोड नहीं लिखेंगे, ठीक है? That is the whole aim of programming in general. Now coming to this, one more issue with this is, see, जैसे मैंने बताया था कि we use the CSS for styling, लेकिन we use HTML only for the content. लेकिन यहाँ पर we are mixing both the style and the content in one file, which is not a good idea. Okay, it's not a good idea to mix the styles inside HTML. ठीक है? That is why we need to keep them separate. Okay, तो जो भी content है वो separate रहेगा, जो भी styling है वो भी separate रहेगा. Okay, that is a good way to go, which means this is not the right way. So even though it is possible to write your styles like this, do not write your styles like this. Okay, it's not a good idea at all. And this brings us to so this is done. अभी inline style हो गया है, ठीक है? Now let's talk about internal style sheet. ये क्या होता है? तो whenever you create a style tag here like this, and if you write all the styles inside of this thing, this is called an internal style sheet. Okay, within your head tag, if you add a style tag like this, and then if you add all the styles which have to be applied for this document within the style tag here, we call this an internal style sheet. Okay, now before going ahead how to add inside this, Lisa, do you have any questions?
Sir,
yeah,
yes, sir.
go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, we can add two colors at a time.
Two colors at a time. So why would you add two colors on a single element?
No, sir. This color different. Is color different? We can add.
I didn't get you.
So they are asking that
example
what
बोलो
about
मुझे.
This is a heading. In that this only is different color. Is only different color. We can add
Yes, we can add. I'll be talking about all of those things. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, cool. But good question. I will be answering all those things. As you learn more, you will know all these things anyway. Okay. Okay. Now, so I was talking about internal style sheets. Now, before getting into what code we write here, let's talk about what is the CSS rule syntax. Basically, we have something called a CSS rule syntax. Okay, very important. What this means is we basically have two parts for every CSS rule syntax. The first part is a selector, and second part is a style declaration. Now, this we already know. Whatever you've seen here, this is exactly that. So I'll just delete everything. I'll paste it here, and we don't need this anymore. Okay. So this is a CSS rule syntax. Jahan par you have a selector and a style declaration. Now, what is a selector? एक मिनट. हाँ. तो एक selector is basically any what are you selecting on the page and giving the styles to. Like अगर आप लोग एक h1 को select करके उसको styles देना चाहेंगे, h1 will be the selector. अगर आप लोगों को एक paragraph को style देना है, then paragraph will be the selector. If you want to style the body will be a selector. Okay. Basically, a selector is something which is used to target the element. Like आपको ultimately आपका target क्या है? That is the question here. Okay. So if your target is a h1 element, like आपको h1 element पे आपको styles देना है, then this becomes a selector. अगर आपको पूरा body में styles देना है, like body को target करके, body को select करके, अगर उसको styles देना है, then that is the selector. Okay. So basically every CSS rule has these two things. अभी एक और बात याद रखना कि see I have written only elements here, right? लेकिन बाद में we will be talking about something else called classes and IDs also, right? We already spoke about that in the HTML class as well, but uska we'll talk about that again here. Okay, so we can select the elements directly by using the element types, or we can even select an element using a class or an ID also, which we'll talk about it later. ठीक है? तो अभी के लिए let's say कि तो इस डॉक्यूमेंट में जितने सारे h1s है, मुझे उन सारे h1 को टारगेट करके एक ब्लू कलर देना है. लेट्स से कि एक h1 यहाँ पर है और एक और h1 बना दूंगा यहाँ पर, like this, and I'll add one more h1 also like this. This is another heading. ठीक है? So right now we have 3 h1s यहाँ पर. अभी मुझे क्या करना है कि I want to target all the h1s. I want to select all the h1s and give them a color of blue. So I target by giving the selector here, and then you open the pair of curly braces यहाँ पर. Ashirvad, do you have any questions? You're not on mute. That's why I'm asking.
So
Okay.
actually, I just joined due to internet reasons.
No issues. Okay, cool. So this is how you target. This is your selector अभी. This is your selector. और अब जो भी styles declarations देंगे, that will be happening inside the curly braces यहाँ पर. ठीक है? So it's like this. You have a selector, and then you have a style declaration inside the curly braces. This will be style declaration. Okay, this is your syntax. So every CSS rule that you write, you will be having this syntax right here. So we'll be adding a color of, let's say, blue. When you go back document, see all the H1s right now have a blue color. ठीक है? So again, like I said, we have 3 H1 elements यहाँ पर, and we are targeting all the H1 elements. हम लोग ऐसे बोल रहे हैं कि जो भी H1 है इस पेज में उसको टारगेट करके give this color, and this is called an internal style sheet, and this is called a CSS rule syntax. ठीक है? Now this is also again this is also not a great way to write your CSS, because इससे प्रॉब्लम ये होता है कि जो भी आप स्टाइल्स लिख रहे हो इट्स ओनली यूज्ड विद इन दैट फाइल. अगर आप इमेजिन करो आपके पास बहुत सारे HTML फाइल्स हैं, तो आपको हर एक HTML फाइल के अंदर जाके आपको इंटरनल स्टाइल लिखना पड़ेगा, which is not a great way to go about it. That is why we have third way, which is the most preferred way, and this is what everybody uses ultimately, and this is called the external style sheet. ठीक है? This is called external style sheet. So let's remove all of this, and what we do is we create a new file called styles.css. So just like how the HTML page has an extension of HTML, your style sheet will have a extension of .css. You create that, and you can add any name you want. This can be any name you want, like any name you want. Doesn't matter, okay? But again, the standard is the standard way to write a CSS ka file ka name is just write styles.css. Okay? Remember that you can also give any name to your HTML page. It doesn't have to be only index or HTML. It can be anything you want. You can write Aman, you can write Piyush, whatever you want. Okay? But it's common that everybody goes with index.html. That is the common way to go about things. Now, once you create the file, we have to link the CSS file with your HTML file. Link करना पड़ेगा हमको. And the way to do that is go to your head, और इस head के अंदर just after title, VS Code में just type for link, and you get the third option here, which is link called CSS. Just select this, and it adds this entire thing for you automatically. लेकिन यहाँ पर सिर्फ आपको ये name change करना पड़ेगा, because our file name is not style.css. Our file name is styles.css. So we'll just go and add the S here. That's it. What's happening here is, see, we are adding a link tag, which will have a rel property. Rel property basically means relationship kya hai. Okay, rel means relationship. So when you specify it's a style sheet, then we have to give a CSS ka file here. By giving a relationship ka attribute as style sheet, browser understands कि ये एक CSS का फाइल है, इसमें सारे स्टाइल्स होने चाहिए. ब्राउजर को वो समझ में आएगा. ठीक है? So always write a link tag, give a rel property, add the style sheet here, and enter the name of your file here. The name of our file is styles.css. Okay? Now when you go to this file, let's add the same rule that we added before, which is we'll target the H1, open and close the curly braces, and here we'll add a color of, let's say, magenta. We now see all the color, all the H1s on your page, they now have a color of magenta. ठीक है? You can add whatever else you want. Let's say you want to add maybe golden, just gold. You see gold here, and you see violet. You see violet here. Okay. We'll talk more about color a little bit later, but for now, I want to talk about what are the different types of selectors. जैसे मैंने बताया था कि we can select an element multiple ways. Doesn't have to be only the element tags. There are other ways also. Okay, but the first way of selecting CSS selectors में, the first way is the element or type selector. तो इसका मतलब है, नाम पे ही है हमको. So you select an element or type. Basically, if you're selecting the H1 or the P or the body directly, that's called the element or type selector. Let's add some more tags. Let's add a div tag here. I am a div. Let's add a span tag here. I'm a span. Let's add maybe a label. I am a label. Okay. आप एक बात याद रखो कि yesterday I spoke about label being used inside a form, right? See, label को हम लोग एक फॉर्म के बाहर भी यूज कर सकते हैं, but it's not the right way. ठीक है? Label is always supposed to be used along with the form control. What are form controls? We spoke about yesterday. We went to facebook.com. Wait, I should not open it here. Let me open in incognito mode. So we go to facebook.com. यहाँ पर see, this is a form, and these both are form controls. This is a button, this is a button, button. These both are input types. Now, if you go to create new account again, see all of these are again they're form elements. तो जब भी आपको एक फॉर्म एलिमेंट के साथ एक लेबल यूज करना है, ओनली देन वी यूज द लेबल टैग. लेकिन लेबल ऐसे एक फॉर्म के बाहर हमको यूज नहीं करना है, इसलिए आई जस्ट रिमूव दिस नाउ. बिकॉज इवन दो दिस विल वर्क, ये काम करेगा, लेकिन ये सही तरीका नहीं है. ठीक है? सो विल रिप्लेस दिस विथ लेट्स से a UL for example, and this left just one item for now, only one item. So let's say कि अगर हम every element को target करेंगे, like let's target paragraph tag, let's give it red, color of red, and if you go back to our page, we see the paragraph is in red color now. Let's target the div tag. This is the div, and we give a color of maybe maroon. ये maroon हो गया है. ठीक है? Now let's target the span tag. Span will be maybe color of orange. Orange में हो गया. Last we target the li items, and we give a color of what else is there? Let's go with brown. Okay, this is how you target all the elements using the element or type selector. जब भी हम लोग एक एलिमेंट को डायरेक्टली ऐसे टारगेट करते हैं, we call that an element or type selector. Okay, just to refresh again, this is the selector, and you always open and close the brackets, and जो भी styles आपको अप्लाई करना है इस एलिमेंट के ऊपर, we add all the styles here. ठीक है? तो अभी तक I know that I've been only using one property called color property, but obviously there are so many other properties. हम लोग उनके बारे में भी बात करेंगे, लेकिन let's learn the basics first. Okay, so this is done. Second is a universal selector. ठीक है, first type हुआ ये, next is a universal selector. Now, I'll just remove all of this. So when you use a star, see, जब हम लोग एक star use करते हैं, we are telling the browser that I want to target all the elements on the web page. So target everything on the web page and add these styles to it. Star का मतलब है select everything. ठीक है? Now here when you add a color of, let's say, sea green, see now everything is in green color now. So every single element on the page is now in green color. That is because we have targeted using a universal selector, which is the star symbol right here. Which means whenever you use a star symbol, you are targeting all the elements on the website. अब इसका use case क्या है? Like, why do we even need something like this? The reason for that is, see, क्या होता है ना, so जब भी आप लोग एक वेबसाइट बनाना स्टार्ट करेंगे, तो every browser adds its own initial default styles. जैसे हम लोगों ने कल देखा था कि जब भी आप लोग एक H1 बना रहे हो, उसका साइज ज्यादा होता है, उसका सॉफ्टवेयर बोल्ड में भी होता है, and whenever you create a UL or an OL tag, जब भी आप लोग एक अनऑर्डर्ड लिस्ट या ऑर्डर लिस्ट बना रहे हो, तो उसका भी एक स्टाइल होता है ना, लाइक यू नो, उसका वो बुलेट पॉइंट्स आता है या फिर 1 2 3 4 आता है. सो ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स, एवरी ब्राउजर इट इम्प्लीमेंट्स इट लिटिल डिफरेंटली. ठीक है, तो हम लोग ये यूज करके व्हाट वी कैन डू इज वी कैन रीसेट द स्टाइल्स. लाइक हम लोग बोलेंगे कि अगर एक वेबसाइट में अगर एक वेबसाइट को एक ब्राउजर एक तरह दिखा रहा है और दूसरे ब्राउजर दूसरे तरह दिखा रहे हैं, देन वी कैन रीसेट देम. ओके, वी कैन use this thing called CSS reset and reset all the styles. Now, if you want to learn more about it, just go to Google and type CSS reset. When you look into this, what this tells you is, तो यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है कि see, they're selecting many elements and they are adding some default styles. इसका मतलब है कि जब भी एक वेबसाइट open होगा in any browser, all of them will have the same styles because we are resetting the styles. ठीक है? Now this was a universal selector. Now next we have is a class selector. Okay, next we have a class selector. What is a class? Okay, so let's say कि हमारे पास एक div है, div के अंदर नहीं, let's do one thing. Let's say कि हमारे पास ये दो पैराग्राफ टैग्स है और एक पैराग्राफ टैग में मैं रेड टेक्स्ट चाहता हूं और दूसरे पैराग्राफ टैग में मुझे ग्रीन टेक्स्ट चाहिए. तो लेट्स गो एंड ट्राई टू ऐड सम कलर. I'll target the paragraph tag and I'll add a color of maybe red. तो जब मैं रेड ऐड करता हूं, both of them get the red color. लेकिन okay, let's try adding green then. Both of them get the green color. लेकिन मुझे क्या चाहिए कि I want this to be in red color and I want this to be in green color. And that is why we have this thing called a class. Now, class is an attribute which exists on every element in HTML, which can be used for the purpose of styling. Okay? Now, when you give a class here and you can give any value you want. Okay, you can give any value. Let's say we'll give it a value of error Okay, and then we'll go here. Now we have to select the class. Okay, now there are two ways of selecting a class. The first way is, so by doing dot and then typing the name of the class, which is error. Now going back to this example here, now this is now a selector. Okay, लेकिन the only difference is, see, these three, ये जो तीन है, all of these three are the element or type selectors. We also have a universal selector, which is this one, and now we have a class selector. So if you want to select or target a class, go to the element and give a class here with a value of something and target that class using dot and then the class name. So here class and the class name, and we give a dot and then the class name. Now here write whatever you want. Let's say we want a color of red here. Now only the paragraph tag gets a color of red. Okay, because ये dot error जो है वो सिर्फ एक ही paragraph tag में है, it only applies to this element. Now what if I want to give a color to this one? Second class is equal to success. Now I'll target this success in the same way, which is dot success and then the color will be green. This is green. Okay, this is how you select the elements using a class selector. Okay, now there is one more way you can target the class, which is dot error के साथ you can even give the element on which the selector is there, like this. See, we know that the element is paragraph, and this paragraph ke andar we have a class called error, which means we can do paragraph dot error, which means paragraph is the element on which there is a class called error, because this paragraph is the element on which we have a class called error. We do p dot error. Okay, but these both will target the same. Abhi, why do we have two different ways? That we'll learn about a little later, because we're still learning the basics right now. Okay, this is a class selector. You can basically give a class to any element you want, and the way you target the class is by doing a dot and the class name. Okay, guys, any questions so far?
This is the only way to define the class, or we can different way also.
No, so we can define them only in this way. You have to provide a keyword called class and give the class name here.
Okay.
But there
No,
is
I'm
no other
asking
way.
in the I'm asking in the style actually. In the styles.css. Yeah, here
so
we can
remember,
mention in the different way also. Or...
no. You have to do it using dot. Dot to
Okay.
pakka chahiye.
Okay,
Because
okay,
what
fine.
happens is, see, if you're defining a class now, you must always use a dot here. Dot के बाद जो भी आएगा, the browser will understand कि okay ये एक class name है. अगर dot है, dot के बाद आपको it must be a class name. But like I said, dot के पहले you can give the element on which this class is currently applied, like this thing, p. Why p? Because ये p जो है, जो paragraph element है, तो इस paragraph element के ऊपर ये class है ना.
Okay, okay, okay.
We can do p dot error as well. We can do both. ठीक है? This and this both are same in this case. लेकिन difference क्या होगा वो बाद में देखेंगे हम लोग.
Okay.
ठीक है ना? All right, that was a good question. Okay, so that was about the class selector. Now next, let's talk about the next type of selector called the ID selector. ID selector. So what is an ID selector? Just like class, you can also give an attribute called an ID like this, and the value can be anything. So let's give it a ID of maybe my ID. You can also use hyphens like this, not a problem at all. लेकिन अब difference क्या है class और ID में? तो ID का जो value है, वो value सिर्फ एक ही element को रह सकता है throughout the document. Like I can't do this. Okay, this is wrong. Okay, because ID जो है वो एक यूनिक आइडेंटिटी रहना चाहिए. इसका मतलब है कि एवरी एलिमेंट कैन हैव इट्स ओन यूनिक आईडी. जो भी एक एलिमेंट का आईडी रहेगा वही आईडी दूसरे एलिमेंट्स को अप्लाई नहीं कर सकते हैं. ठीक है, बिकॉज आईडी इज यूनिक. तो एक पूरे HTML वेब पेज में देयर कैन बी ओनली वन माई आईडी, व्हिच मींस वी कैन नॉट डू दिस, लेकिन वी कैन गिव something else here, maybe something else like this. But the difference between an ID and a class is you can give the same class name to multiple elements. Like let's say कि अगर मैं एक h1 बनाता हूं यहाँ पर, I'll say I also need red text, so I can just give a class of error here and it will work for both this as well as this automatically. Because हम लोग यहाँ पर क्या बोल रहे हैं कि जो भी एलिमेंट्स है इस वेबसाइट पे जिनको ये एरर का क्लास दिया गया है, उन सबको टारगेट या सेलेक्ट करके ये कलर दे दो. ओके, और इस वेबसाइट में जिन एलिमेंट्स को ये सक्सेस का क्लास नेम है उनको ये कलर दे दो. दैट्स व्हाट इट मींस. डॉट एरर का मतलब है target all the elements on the website, on the web page, which have a class of error. Because both of these elements have the class of error, both will be targeted and we give the same color to both of them. Okay, now ID, but now how do we select an element using an ID? Let's remove all of this and let's add just one h1, target me with ID. We have this. Let's add an ID is equal to 1. Now, if you remember, I told you that if we want to select a class, we use a dot, right? Like if we want to select an ID, we use hash. तो hash के बाद जो भी आएगा, that has to be the ID name. In our case, the ID is 1. We give a value of 1 here. We open and close the curly brackets, and then here the color must be green. Green हो गया. ठीक है, तो 1, whenever you have a hash, after hash whatever value you give, that will be the ID का value. ठीक है, and remember that अगर आपने एक आईडी को एक वैल्यू दे दिया है, that value must be unique for that element. बाकी सारे एलिमेंट्स को वही आईडी आप लोग नहीं दे सकते हैं. ठीक है, IDs are unique, but classes don't have to be unique. Only IDs are unique. Okay, तो एक बार रिवाइज करते हैं. We basically have these 4 types of CSS का selectors, where element and type selector का मतलब है if we target the element directly like this, and we give a color of red. ठीक है, so remember कि we target the element, we open and close the curly braces, we add a property and a value, and every pair of property and value must end with a semicolon. ठीक है? Okay. Next is universal selector, which is basically you target all the elements on the page like this. Okay, so star का मतलब है universal selector. Next is the class selector, which is basically you target using the class name like this. And last is the ID selector, which you target using the hash value. तो hash के बाद जो भी आएगा, that will be the ID का value, which is ID maybe 1 or 2 or whatever that comes. ठीक है? These are the 4 types of CSS का selectors. Okay.
For ID and class, we have to use only characters, or we can use the numeric and alphanumeric also.
You cannot use numeric. See, it always must begin with a character. Like it has to. So it can be like this, like O1. This will work. So you can do O1 here, but you cannot start an ID or a class name using a number. It has to be a like a character.
Characters.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Now next, let's talk
Sir.
about.
Sir,
Rajendra, yeah, ask me.
sir, go to CSS file.
Okay.
Sir, click on red color.
No, click on red. Okay.
Don't. Okay. Sir, what is RGB 25500? What is
I will
that?
talk about. हाँ, मैं उसी के बारे में next बार बात करने वाला हूँ.
Okay, sir. Sir, can we
हाँ.
access both class inside ID?
Class inside ID का मतलब, okay, are you saying like this?
Reverse, vice versa.
Like this?
Yes, sir.
We can do this also. Basically, okay, I'll talk about this, Rajendra. So basically,
Okay.
see, every element, it can have both class as well as an ID. So I'll tell you how else we can use ID. We have actually used the ID for one more thing. If you remember last class में मैंने एक link बनाया था और इस link को मैंने href में एक value दिया था. So we can, okay, I'll tell you an example. Wait. So let's go to Wikipedia and let's search for maybe Shark Tank Wikipedia. So here, if you go, let's open a section here. Let's say we go to production. Look at the URL यहाँ पर. URL के अंदर we have this thing called hash. Let me paste this inside here to expand this and see how it looks. एक minute. This is the URL. ये बहुत बड़ा हो गया, रुको. ये क्यों इतना बड़ा हो गया? एक मिनट. This is the URL. यहाँ पर if you see this entire thing is URL. URL के end पे you have this hash. तो hash के बाद जो भी है ना, that's actually the ID of an element in the page. Now, yesterday we spoke about inspecting elements. Let's inspect this element here. Right click and then inspect. And then if you come back here, you're inspecting this thing. See, this is the span. एक minute. कहाँ गया वो? From production. This is the element. It's actually a span. Span has the ID of production. Okay. अभी understand one thing कि तो पहली बात तो ये है कि every element can have both ID as well as a class for sure. Okay. We use the classes mainly for the purpose of styling. जब भी आपको एक element को styling करना है, we use a class for that. Even though we can style the elements using ID, उतना common नहीं है. लेकिन ID has one more use. Okay, like let's say I create an anchor tag, take production in Shark Tank. Now if I give, मैं सिर्फ यहाँ तक अगर URL देता हूँ, यहाँ तक बिना हैश के, and if I give this as a href attribute here, okay, yeah, now see what happens when I click on this. It takes me to the Wikipedia page. But what if I want to make sure that जब मैं इस पेज पे आता हूँ तो ऑटोमेटिकली मुझे ये दिखना चाहिए, प्रोडक्शन का दिखना चाहिए. So I have to just like copy this thing, and if I give a link here like this, hash production. Now when I click on our when I click on this, so it takes me to the web page and it takes me here, which means this is one of the use cases or benefits of using an ID. So ID जो है, it's not only used for the styling purposes. In fact, styling के लिए बहुत कम use होता है. तो styling के लिए हम लोग majority we use only classes. लेकिन ID का purpose ये भी एक होता है. I'll give you one more example. I'll give you. Let's say कि I'll remove all of this and let me create some 10 elements like this. Okay. So this is our web page right now. तो see, मुझे नीचे scroll करना पड़ रहा है यहाँ पर जाने के लिए. ठीक है. Now what I'll do is you will reach here and I have to remove all the options here. Let me just do that. अरे क्या हुआ? So let's remove all of the IDs. Let them have a class. Observe यहाँ पर कि मैंने क्या किया कि I have some multiple h1 elements, लेकिन इन सब में only this has the ID and this has the ID of 2. अब मैं क्या करता हूँ? Shall create an anchor tag here. यहाँ पर I'm going to give this href is equal to hash and the ID of the hash here, which is this one, 2. Take me to the target. Okay. Now when I click on this, so it takes me here. मैं यहाँ पर था पहले. When I click on this, it takes me to this place. This is also one more use cases of the ID property. Now to answer the question by Rajinder, so every element you can give both ID as well as a class. लेकिन जब भी आप लोग एक स्टाइलिंग करते हो, then you'll mostly use a class only. ID बहुत कम यूज करोगे for styling purposes. Well, ID has other purposes. Okay, like I spoke about. Also yesterday also you remember if we spoke about the form elements, जब भी हम लोगों ने एक input को एक ID दिया था, we were able to use a label for that, right? So label में हम लोगों ने वो for का attribute दिया था, and using the for attribute in label and the ID attribute in the form element, we were able to link both of them. ठीक है? Yeah, so ultimately the bottom line is, yes, you can have both a class and the ID, and the order does not matter. See, अगर ऐसा है, दोनों सेम है. Okay, does not matter कि पहले ID आ रहा है या फिर class आ रहा है, doesn't matter at all. Both of them are exactly the same. Okay, so any more questions, Rajinder? Okay, cool. My site just stopped for a second, so 1 second. Okay, it's here. Okay, now we'll start talking about the various CSS properties. तो अभी तक हम लोगों ने सिर्फ वो कलर देख रहा था ना, सो लेट्स डिस्कस अबाउट द कलर्स इन मोर डिटेल. Now, one common way you can give a color is by using the keywords like this. You can say red, you can say like pink, and let's target the H1 here. Okay, so you can basically add the colors directly using the keyword like this. This is one way. The other way is by using something called a hex value. तो hex का value होता है, so it starts with a hash key, and then you give a combination of 6 letters, which ultimately they create a color for you. Like let's say we want a black color, that's 000. Okay, and if you want a white color, it's FFF. Okay, now I know that I told you we need like 6 different letters. Lekin agar, see, let's say we have this. Okay, we have 6 letters and all the letters are the same letters. See, if all the letters are the same letters, then चाहे आप ये लिखो या फिर, let me go here. So if you have F F F F F F, this and this are the same things because यहाँ पर all the letters are the same letters. Like let's say we create a hash like BA1 2 246. हाँ, मैं random create कर दिया मैंने, and this is also value. Now, where do you get this hex values from? See, you will never remember the hex values. अब जब भी एक website बना, I mean, see, if you go to an actual company and if you start working for an actual company, ना, those people, those companies have a designer. वो आपको बताएगा कि आपको which color you have to use. Like for example, अभी मैं काम कर रहा था मेरे कंपनी में. We have this website called a software called Figma, जहाँ पर designers they create designs, ठीक है, और हम लोग as developers will look at the designs and they create the website or mobile app based on this. Now if you go here, now let's actually take a look at this one. तो मुझे ये पूरा यूआई बनाना था आज, ठीक है. What I do is मुझे नहीं पता कि ये कौन सा पिंक कलर है, okay, और मुझे पता करना, I mean, I don't even have to know. All I have to do is I have to just click on this और यहाँ पर मिल गया मुझे. See, FF. Let me just copy this. I'll come back to this one and I'll paste it here. Okay, this is the value. बस. So आपको बिल्कुल भी याद रखने का जरूरत नहीं है. अगर आप लोग एक कंपनी में काम कर रहे, so the designers आपको देंगे. नहीं तो Google में there are so many websites will give you the colors also. One very popular website is this thing called colorhunt.co. Okay, this website में you can go to this website and let it load. Why it's not loading? हाँ, it loaded now. You have multiple colors यहाँ पर. Just go and see, if you hover over any of the colors, it shows you the hex code यहाँ पर. This is 826 and 7AC. This is C7BB0 and so on. Let's say we like this color. Just click on this and click on this thing here. And it says copied. Come back to your code and paste it like this. That's it. So color change हो गया. Okay. That's how the hex code works. Okay. This is the first. The second way of adding this is the hex code. Now the third way is by using RGBA. Or just RGB. Okay. What RGB means is red, green, or blue color. So all the values, see, red ka value, green ka value, or blue ka value, you can give a value between 0 and 255. ठीक है. इसका मतलब okay, let's say कि मुझे red का value मुझे 0 चाहिए, green मुझे बहुत चाहिए, and blue मुझे 0 चाहिए. Okay. अभी हमको we are seeing only green here because मैंने बोला कि रेड मुझे 0 चाहिए और ब्लू भी मुझे 0 चाहिए, मुझे सिर्फ ग्रीन चाहिए, वो भी बहुत चाहिए ग्रीन. If I change to maybe let's say like 1, very close to black, let's change it to 100, थोड़ा सा ग्रीन हुआ, change it to 150 और भी थोड़ा ग्रीन हुआ, 255 is the highest value you can go, that is green here. Okay, now abhi last value you can give is the opacity value. तो opacity का मतलब होता है, do you want to make this a transparent or not transparent? If you give a value of 0, it's completely transparent. मैंने सेव किया, अब वो दिख रहा भी नहीं है, लेकिन if I highlight like this, यहाँ पर दिखेगा, this is the text, लेकिन it's not shown because this is a transparent value. ठीक है, so let me write it like this actually. So let's say RGBA. तो R जो है वो रेड कलर है, ग्रीन है, ब्लू है. ये A जो है that is the opacity, and opacity ranges from 0 to 1. 0 is the most transparent, 1 is completely like not transparent at all. मतलब है 0.5 will be slightly transparent. So if you go and take a look at the example again, so let's make it 1. 1 क्या है? It means it's not transparent at all. बिल्कुल भी transparency नहीं है. लेकिन if you want थोड़ा transparent, we can make 0.5. It's slightly more transparent now. Okay. So let's say you want, अगर नहीं चाहिए तो निकाल देंगे. It's not mandatory. तो ये A का value जो है, this thing is not mandatory. It's actually an optional value. But if you go back here and if you give a value of let's say 000, it's again black. But if you give this a value of 255, that becomes red, because R का मतलब है red. And you can mix and match. Let's make this maybe 100, and you can make this maybe 190. We have this color. Okay. Again, this also, if you want to work with this, just go to Google and use any website which lets you create an RGBA color. Okay. And VS Code also, if you just hover over this now, VS Code gives you this thing, जो आप like drag कर सकते हो ऐसा, and this changes the values यहाँ पर. So you keep dragging, you keep changing, you can change the color here. This is the opacity का value, and there's a different colors you have here. ठीक है? Whatever color you want, you can go with it. That's it. Okay, this was the colors thing. Now, apart from giving a color for the text, you can also give a background color to the elements. जो भी एक color है, that gives the color to the text inside the element. लेकिन अगर एक element को आप background color देना चाहते हो, you have a property called background color. This has the same values as that of the color, which means you can either give a keyword like this, or you can give an RGBA, or you can give like a hex value. This is the difference. Abhi, because say we are targeting a H1 element, which is basically a block level element, इसका मतलब है कि it takes up the entire width of the container. Okay. Body जो है, body ये पूरा हुआ है ना, body is the entire thing, and because the H1 is inside the body is the containing element of this H1. Okay, H1 का containing element जो है वो ये body है, and the way the block level elements work is, by default they take up the entire width of the containing element. Okay, so all the H1 and all the divs, all the paragraphs, all of them are block level elements. They take up the entire width of the containing element, which is the body. Okay,
Sir,
and we can yeah.
sir, I don't give no whole background color. I only give the background color at ID. Then what we do?
Just ID.
Yes, not ID. Target me with ID and then stop.
Got it, got it. So you want only a target me with यहाँ तक ना,
No, me with ID.
यहाँ से यहाँ तक.
Target me with ID, sir.
Got it, got it. So basically, wait. First I'll remove the color here. बताओ ना, what do you want? You want सिर्फ इसको color देना है ना?
Only complete line they are saying, not.
अच्छा. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
See, by default, if you give a block level element, that is what will happen. Okay. Lekin if you change, I mean, if you give a, let's say, an inline element like this. Okay. See, span is an inline element. And inline elements, they take up the width of the content. जितना content है, उनका width उतना ही होगा. Now, if you target the span and give a background color of pink, so you get only this much, like this. Okay, this is one way. But what if you wanted a H1 only, but you wanted it to have this utna sa? Okay, one more way is, let's create a H1 like this. H1 and then we create a H1. तो अभी ये पूरा H1 ही है, लेकिन because we're targeting only the span, वो सिर्फ इतना ही लेगा. लेकिन if we target the H1 ना भी, let's say H1, give a background color of green. See, this entire thing is a H1, but because we're targeting only the span here, उसको सिर्फ इतना मिलेगा. देखो, if this is confusion, don't worry, because there's so much more to learn anyway. There's a separate topic on inline and block elements. When we talk about that, you'll get more clarity. But abhi ke liye, this is one way you can do it. Okay? By default, all the block elements will take up the entire width. And when you give a background color on a block level element, it applies to the entire width only. Like if you want only that particular thing ना, then जो भी content है, उसको एक inline element से wrap करो, जैसे कि एक span हुआ. तो span is an inline element. What happens with the span is, an inline element like span takes up only that much width as the content requires. Like in this case, this is the content, right? It only applies to this content. That's it. Like this. Does it answer your question, Rajinder?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Good question. Okay, now, so we even spoke about background color also. Now next let's talk about, okay, let's talk about text styling. So if you go to any website again, let's say we go to InShots, go to any website. One of the most common things you will see is whatever the style of the text is. Okay? Like what is the font size? What is the font family? मतलब like आप कौन सा font use कर रहे हो? All of those things also we can give using the text styling. Okay, we'll start talking about that now. Now, whenever you create any text inside a page, uska by default, if you open the Chrome now, let's inspect this element. जब आप inspect करते हो इस element को, and if you actually go to this thing called computed, in computed में, if you go and search for the font family, see, ये जो है यहाँ पर, it says Times. Times New Roman is the default font in the Chrome browser. तो इसका मतलब है कि अगर आप लोग अपना खुद एक font family नहीं देते हो, then by default the browser will apply the font family of Times New Roman. ठीक है? So every piece of text on this website will have the same font family unless you change it in your CSS ka file. Okay, let's try to see how we can change the font family. Okay, so let's target the H. Okay, I'll just heading yahan par, and I'll target the H1, and we have a property called font family which takes in the font family name. Let's say I want Verdana. Abhi font has changed now. Okay, if we target an element and give a font family, that will be applied to the font. We can even change to let's say sans serif. Abhi फिर से it's changed. Okay, so whatever font family you want, you'll be giving that. Now again, how do you know what family you want? That again depends on the designers. If you're working in a project in a company, the designer will tell you what font family to use. Like, if you want to work on it by yourself, अगर आप अपना खुद का प्रोजेक्ट बना रहे हो, then you can use the fonts whatever you like. Just go to Google and search for it, you'll get the font ka list. लेकिन remember that if you add a font here which is not supported by the browser, it might create a problem. इसलिए you can add backup fonts as well. हम लोग यहाँ पर बैकअप भी दे सकते हैं. अगर एक ब्राउजर में ये फॉन्ट नहीं है तो ये यूज करो, अगर ये भी नहीं है तो ये यूज करो. We can do like that. So let's say we just VS Code में, let's say we just type this thing and you get a list of options here. See, let's select this one. Okay, what this means is I want you to apply the Verdana style, लेकिन अगर ब्राउजर वो सपोर्ट नहीं करता है, then apply this style. अगर ब्राउजर में वो भी नहीं है, then apply this. अगर वो भी नहीं है, then apply this. Okay, which means the Verdana is a top priority. लेकिन ये सारे जो है वो तब अप्लाई होंगे अगर ब्राउजर इसको like it doesn't support this, only then these will be applied. Okay, that's what. And there is one more concept called as web safe fonts. Web safe fonts. And what this means is, जो भी fonts आप लोग एक ब्राउजर पे आप safely use कर सकते हो, we call them as web safe fonts. And it's always good to use the web safe fonts only. And for that, you can just go to Google Fonts, and all the fonts here are web safe fonts. You can just use anything that anything you want from here. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about the other properties on the text. Apart from this, if you want to italicize a font, like usko italics banana hai, then we can use this thing called font style. Yeah, italic. So italic ho gaya. Next thing, if you want to change a font to bold, let's say कि अगर मैं यहाँ पर एक पैराग्राफ डालता हूँ, make me bold. Let's target the paragraph tag. So अभी observe कि this is not bold right now. अभी ये bold नहीं है. लेकिन अगर if you add a font weight, तो font weight जो है, it takes a value from 100 to 900. Minimum value is 100, maximum value is 900. But apart from that, you have more values like bold, bolder, lighter, and normal. You can add any of these values. If you add 100, let's see what happens. See, which means default is 100. Let's add a value of 400. अभी थोड़ा bold हुआ. Let's make it 900. So it's become more bold now. And if you add bolder, hit save. See, which means bolder and 900 दोनों का value same here. Okay. Let me repeat this. A font weight is used to increase or decrease the boldness of a text. Okay. You have multiple values which range from 100 to 900, and you even have values like bold, bolder, light, and lighter. Okay. The other property which I want to talk about is the font ka size. So if you want to increase the size of this text, we have this property called as the font size, which default for the paragraph in every browser is a 16 pixels, but you can also increase it to maybe 32 pixels and the size will increase. If you increase it to maybe 40 pixels, it increases even more. Okay, so this is used to increase the size of the fonts. Now next, let's talk about the text का layout का styles. तो अभी तक हमने क्या किया कि जो भी text है उसका जो font weight, size, all of those we have targeted. But now let's talk about the alignment of the text. So let's say कि अगर मुझे ये पैराग्राफ जो है मुझे इस वेबसाइट में उसको सेंटर अलाइन करना है, then we have this thing called text align, and text align has many values which are center, end, justify, all of these things. But the most common thing that we'll use is this. This will automatically make this at the center of the containing element. ठीक है? And we can use end यहाँ पर, वो right में आ जाएगा. And if you use, let's say, और क्या है? We have left, which is the default, but you can add even a center also here if you want. And next thing we have is the line height. Line height का मतलब है कि what will be the height of the line? So, you know, whatever value you give here now, let's say if you give 2, what happens is 2 का मतलब है जितना भी इसका font size है, that into 2. So let me add some background color here. Let's say pink. So now this entire thing is the line height. Now if I comment this out, मैंने इसको निकाल दिया है. This is how it normally looks. Say without line height, it looks like this. Like if you give a line height, it looks like this. You can make it like any number of times you want. If you give 3, it means कि अभी ये line का height जो है वो 3 into इसका font size है. ठीक है, इसका मतलब 3 into 40 pixels. That is line height. Now let's say you want to increase the spacing between the letters here. M और A के बाद, A और K के बाद, K और E के बाद, basically between all the alphabets you want to add some spacing there. That you can do by adding letter spacing. Let's say you want the spacing of 4 pixels. See, अभी थोड़ा और थोड़ा अभी ऐसा आ गया ना. Let's make it like 10 pixels. Like this. Basically, you're adding some spacing between all the letters. That's letter spacing. What if you want to add some space between the words? We have this thing called word spacing. Let's make it 10 pixels. See, so word के बीच में we got the spacing अभी. Let's make it maybe 40 pixels. See, और spacing आ गया है. ठीक है? We can use letter spacing for spaces between the letters, word spacing for spacing between the words. ठीक है? That is all I have. But one more thing I want to talk about is, let's say you inspect something on this one element here. Like I told you guys yesterday, so all of these are the elements on the page. Whenever you highlight, whenever you hover over any element here, browser यहाँ पर left side पे highlight करता है, blue color में और orange color में वगैरह. When you click on the element, right side पे आप जो भी देख रहे हो ना यहाँ पर, you have two kinds of styles. The first style is all of this. If you remember, हमने तो ये styles add नहीं किए हैं ना. We didn't add any of these styles in our browser. I mean, in our file here. See, we only added the font family and font style. Lekin, where are these styles coming from? Where's the display, font, all of these things? Where are they coming from? They're coming from a user agent's style sheet. Now, what is a user agent? A user agent is a software where your website is currently running. Like, where is our website currently running? In this case, our website is running on the browser, which means this Chrome का browser is your user agent. अगर आप लोग इसी website को अपने एक phone के browser में इस्तेमाल कर रहे हो, then your phone का browser becomes a user agent. Okay. Now, like I told before, every browser adds its own styles to the website by default. इसका मतलब है जब भी आप लोग एक h1 डालेंगे, all of these styles will be applied automatically by the browser.
Sir,
हाँ राजेंद्र.
sir, we give all the size in pixels, but in user agent style sheet, font size is in 2 amp.
We'll talk about in next class.
EM.
We'll talk about M's and rems and percentage, all those things we'll talk about next class में.
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah. So जैसे कि मैं बोल रहा था कि all of these styles are coming from the user agent, which means the browser. Okay, but whatever you see here, these are our styles. Like जो भी हमने यहाँ पर लिखा था, all of these are these styles here. Okay. One more thing is, if you want to like play with the styling without changing in your code, you can do it right here. यहाँ पर after selecting the element, come here and give a color of let's say red. See, red आ गया यहाँ पर. Okay, which means you can also add styles directly in your browser. Lekin what happens here is these changes are not permanent. ठीक है? When you refresh the page, it will go off. Which means this is only for you to play around with. Like सिर्फ आपके like demo के लिए आप ऐसे use कर सकते हैं. And one more thing is, if you hover over these styles, you'll get the checkboxes here. When you uncheck them, which means you're removing the style. लेकिन ये भी temporary ही है. ठीक है? तो whatever changes you make in the developer console are only temporary. Okay, they will not affect the code here. Like for example, if I write, see, if I uncheck this and if I give it a color of red, वो सिर्फ इस time के लिए अभी apply होगा, लेकिन nothing will change here. When you refresh the page, यहाँ पर हमने जो भी लिखा था वो यहाँ पर आ जाएगा. ठीक है? Okay. That's all I have for today, guys. Any questions anybody else has?
Sir, I have a question related to HTML file.
Ask me, Rajendra. Ask me. Yeah.
Sir, show me a HTML file.
Okay.
Sir, what is a meta character set HTTP equip?
All of these things are little advanced. Abhi ke liye batan. Okay. I'll talk about this thing. Okay. These both I'll talk when we learn a little bit more about what CSS. It will become easier then. But I'll talk about this. Basically, see, when computer was initially designed now, people were mostly only communicating in English. लेकिन as like जब internet और बड़ा होता गया, people from all over the world also started communicating using internet. लेकिन internet में, if I am someone from an Arabic country, and if I type in Arabic at that time, it was not working because at that time the browsers were built only to display characters in English. लेकिन बाद में क्या हुआ कि people started developing this thing called a character set. Okay, we have many character sets. One of them is UTF-8. ठीक है, what this allows us to do, जब आप लोग ये देते हैं एक वेबसाइट पे, what we are saying is I want you to display any character in this world, including Arabic and all different languages also. Okay, जब आप लोग ये देंगे ना, which means आपकी ब्राउजर पे, आपकी ये वेबसाइट, you can display any kind of character because UTF-8 वो support देता है. UTF-8 gives the support to display any kind of character, including Arabic and Chinese and Vietnamese, all those things, not just English. Okay, that is why we give this thing. We are telling the browser that I want you to display all the characters which are supported by UTF-8, and UTF-8 supports almost all kinds of characters. It has a very big collection of characters and it supports all of them. Okay, that is about the meta tag. But what is meta? So meta is nothing but meta tag gives more information about this document. Meta tag जो भी है, जो भी आप दोगे यहाँ पर, it does not display on the website. Like आपको यहाँ पर नहीं दिखेगा कि ये meta tag like what is doing, लेकिन it works behind the scenes, and a meta tag gives the metadata of a website. What is metadata? So it's nothing but it gives you more information about the document. That's it.
Thank
Any
you,
more
sir.
questions? No problem. Any more questions, guys?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Pratiksha, tell me.
सर ह्या क्लासची रेकॉर्डिंग कधी देणार?
हाँ, रिकॉर्डिंग कर लिया मैंने. हाँ,
हाँ, कल भेज दोगे क्या ग्रुप पर? मेरे पहले लेक्चर मिस हुए इसलिए प्रॉब्लम आ
मिस
रही
हुआ
है
था
सर.
क्या? तो आप एक काम करना, आपका कुछ व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप है क्या आपका?
हाँ है सर.
हाँ, आप एक बार रेशमा मैम से या दूसरा कौन है, आई थिंक यू कैन आस्क पूजा मैम आल्सो. आस्क पूजा मैम और रेशमा मैम, दे विल गिव यू. ओके, मेरे पास नहीं होगा रिकॉर्डिंग, उन्हीं के पास होगा वो.
ठीक है सर. 2 लेक्चर हुए हैं ना इससे पहले, 2 लेक्चर.
हाँ हाँ, 2 हुए अभी तक. करेक्ट.
ठीक है सर.
ये थर्ड लेक्चर है. हाँ,
इसकी भेज दो रिकॉर्डिंग, कल मैं देखती हूँ. कल लेक्चर नहीं है ना HTML का सर?
हाँ, कल और परसों नहीं है, लेकिन वही बोल रहा हूँ कि मेरे पास रिकॉर्डिंग नहीं होगा. वो उन्हीं को पूछना पड़ेगा आपको, रेशमा मैम को या पूजा मैम को पूछ लो आप एक बार.
ओके सर. आज की
Okay, thank you.
लेक्चर की रिकॉर्डिंग दे दो सर, बाकी की मैं मैम से ले लूंगी.
आज का भी रिकॉर्डिंग मेरे पास नहीं होगा, वही बोल रहा हूँ मैं.
ओके सर, ठीक है.
हाँ.
मैम से ले लूंगी.
रेशमा मैम से पूछो, वो लोग दे देंगे आपको. ठीक है,
थैंक यू सर.
नो प्रॉब्लम. थैंक यू. एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस गाइस? Okay, then I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye bye. Good night.